7 weeks into the posting, I found a logbook in the supply shed that nobody had told me about. It was on the bottom shelf behind a crate of trail markers, wrapped in a dry bag and sealed with a rubber band that crumbled when I touched it. The logbook had 43 entries in it, written by 4 different people, over what the dates told me was an 11-year period. The last entry was dated 6 years before my first shift. The entry read, "The rules are holding. Whatever they were written for, they are still working. Do not change them. Do not add to them. Do not ask why they say what they say. Just follow them and go home in the morning." I read that entry standing in the supply shed with a flashlight at 2 in the afternoon, and I thought about the rules I had been given on my first day, and I understood for the first time that I had not been given those rules to protect visitors. There are no visitors where I work. My name is Conrad Beal. I am 58 years old. Before this posting, I spent 14 years as a structural inspector for the Federal Highway Administration, specifically bridge inspection, working the remote highway corridors of the Northern Rockies, where bridges go years between inspections because the roads they carry are used by almost nobody, and the budgets for maintaining them are slim, and the inspectors who draw those routes are the ones who do not mind long drives and longer silences. Bridge inspection is methodical work. You have a checklist and you work the checklist, and the checklist tells you what to measure and what to photograph and what to flag, and you do not deviate from the checklist, because the checklist was built by people who knew what failures looked like before they happened. I was good at the checklist. I was good at the long drives and the longer silences. I was good at finding the wrong thing in a structure and noting it precisely and moving on, without catastrophizing. That combination of skills is apparently rare enough that the National Park Service's Restricted Operations Division found my name through a federal contractor database and sent me a letter on plain paper with no return address, asking if I was interested in a seasonal monitoring position in a remote area of a national park. The letter did not name the park. I found that out when I accepted and was given directions to the posting location. The park is in the American Southwest. That is as specific as I am going to be. The section I monitor is a high desert plateau at approximately 8,000 feet elevation, rimrock country, the kind of landscape that looks barren from a distance and turns out to be dense with life the closer you get to it. Juniper and piñon pine in the draws, cryptobiotic soil crust on the flats that takes decades to recover from a single footprint, canyon wrens and ravens and the occasional golden eagle working the thermals off the rimrock in the afternoon. It is some of the most intact high desert habitat in the country, and it is completely closed to the public and has been for longer than anyone I have spoken to can tell me. The monitoring station is a single-room building on the plateau, built from the same sandstone as the rimrock around it, so that from 50 yards away it looks like a natural feature. Inside there is a desk, a cot, a propane stove, a radio, a wall of shelving, and a door on the north wall that leads to a narrow instrument room containing equipment I was told during orientation to leave alone unless a specific indicator light on the panel turned red, in which case I was to radio dispatch immediately and do nothing else. The indicator light has never turned red. I have looked at it every shift for 7 weeks and it has never changed. Beside the desk on my first day was a sealed envelope with my name on it. Inside were the rules, 15 of them, typed on plain paper, no letterhead, no agency identification, just the rules. And I'm going to tell you what they say. Rule 1. Your patrol covers the plateau surface within a half-mile radius of the monitoring station. The patrol route is marked with cairns, stacked stone markers, at 12 points around the radius. Each cairn must be visited once per patrol in numerical order. The cairns are numbered with a single painted mark, 1 stripe for cairn 1, 2 stripes for cairn 2, and so on. Do not visit cairns out of order. Do not skip a cairn and return to it. If a cairn has been disturbed or knocked down, rebuild it before moving to the next one. Rebuilding takes priority over schedule. The cairns are the spine of this posting. Everything else in the rules relates to them in some way. In 7 weeks, I have rebuilt disturbed cairns on 14 occasions. The disturbances are never random. They follow a pattern I noticed in my 3rd week. Cairns 5, 6, and 7 are disturbed more frequently than the others. Those 3 cairns sit on the southern edge of the patrol radius, the side that faces the deepest section of the canyon system that drops off the plateau to the south. Whatever disturbs the cairns comes from that direction. I rebuild them and I do not investigate, and I move to Cairn 8. Rule 2. Patrol begins at 9 in the evening and the first circuit must be completed by midnight. The second circuit begins at midnight and must be completed by 3 in the morning. The third circuit begins at 3 and must be completed before first light. 3 full circuits per shift. Each circuit takes approximately 2 hours if you maintain steady pace. Do not fall behind on circuit timing. A delayed circuit is logged as an anomaly and reported to dispatch at the next check-in. 3 circuits per shift is more physical work than any posting I have read about in the old logbook. The plateau surface is not flat. The half-mile radius covers broken ground, shallow washes, loose rock, the kind of terrain that punishes a careless step. By the end of the 3rd circuit, every shift, my feet know exactly how tired they are. I have not fallen behind on a circuit in 7 weeks. The old logbook entries suggest that delayed circuits corresponded with the worst nights at this posting. I do not know the causal direction of that correlation. I maintain my pace regardless. Rule 3. Do not use artificial light to illuminate the canyon rim on the southern edge of the patrol radius. Your flashlight is for the plateau surface only. When your route takes you to cairns 5, 6, and 7 on the southern edge, keep the flashlight beam on the ground in front of your feet. Do not sweep it outward over the canyon. Do not look into the canyon with or without a light source. The canyon drops about 400 feet from the rim where cairns 5, 6, and 7 sit. In the daytime, it is a geological feature, layered sandstone, a dry stream bed at the bottom, the occasional cottonwood in the wash. At night, working by the rule, keeping my light on my feet and my eyes off the drop, it is something else. I cannot tell you what it is because I follow the rule. What I can tell you is that the air at the southern cairns is different from the air at the northern ones. Heavier, cooler in a way that is not fully explained by the canyon draft. And on active nights, the 3 southern cairns are always the disturbed ones, and always in the same order. 7 first, then 6, then 5, as if something moving north along the canyon rim knocks them down as it goes. Rule 4. The instrument room on the north side of the building must be entered at exactly 1 in the morning. Inside, the panel on the east wall has a row of 12 dials. Read the number each dial displays and record it in the instrument log on the shelf below the panel. Each reading takes approximately 3 seconds. The full panel reading should take no more than 40 seconds. Exit the instrument room and close the door. Do not linger. Do not touch the dials. Do not attempt to interpret the readings. The 12 dials display numbers between 0 and 100. In 7 weeks, the readings have varied constantly. No 2 nights have produced the same combination. I record them faithfully and I do not interpret them, and I have not told dispatch about the patterns I have noticed. Because the rule says not to interpret, and I extend that to not reporting interpretations I have not been asked for. What I will tell you is that on the nights when the southern cairns are disturbed and the canyon air is heavy and the 3rd circuit feels longest, the dial readings cluster in the upper range. On quiet nights, they cluster lower. The dials are measuring something. The something correlates with the activity level of the posting. I note this here for you because you will notice it too, and I want you to know that someone else noticed it and decided to keep walking regardless. Rule 5. Radio checks occur at 10 in the evening, 2 in the morning, and 4 in the morning on Channel 6. The daily code phrase is broadcast at 8:50 each evening. If the voice on the radio during a check uses a phrase other than today's code phrase, do not respond. Turn the radio off. Place it in the desk drawer. Complete your remaining circuits without radio contact. At the end of your shift, turn the radio back on and report the false transmission to dispatch using the emergency contact protocol on the card taped to the inside of the desk drawer. I have used the emergency contact protocol twice. Both times dispatch confirmed the transmission I had received was not from them. Both times they thanked me for following the protocol and told me to resume normal operations on the following shift. On the second occasion, the dispatcher added one sentence that she did not elaborate on. She said, "The false transmissions are becoming more frequent at your post. We are aware of it." I did not ask what they were doing about it. She had moved on before I could form the question. Rule 6. If you find a cairn that has been built at a location that does not correspond to any of the 12 numbered positions on your route map, do not approach it. Note its location relative to the nearest numbered cairn and continue your circuit. Do not add it to your patrol route. Do not touch it. Do not knock it down. Report it at the next scheduled radio check. Dispatch will advise, "I found an unnumbered cairn on my 19th shift, between cairns 8 and 9, on the northeastern edge of the radius. It was built from the same plateau rock as the numbered cairns, and it was carefully stacked, not a casual pile, the kind of construction that takes attention and patience. I noted its location, 11 yards northeast of cairn 8, and radioed dispatch at the 2 in the morning check. Dispatch said, 'Copy that. Do not interact with it. We will note the location.' The unnumbered cairn was gone by my next shift. I did not ask how it was removed. The numbered cairn positions were undisturbed. Rule 7. Between 2 in the morning and 2:30 in the morning, do not speak aloud. No radio transmissions, no talking to yourself, no verbal counting. If you need to count your steps or your time, do so silently. If the radio produces sound during this window, do not respond verbally. The 2 in the morning radio check is moved to 1:50 for this reason. Complete your check before 2 and maintain verbal silence until 2:30. The silence window was the rule that felt most arbitrary when I first read it. 7 weeks in it feels like the most important one. The plateau at night is not silent. Wind, wildlife, the creak of the junipers in the draws, but the human voice carries differently up here than it does at lower elevations. It travels farther and it arrives differently at the canyon rim and at the southern cairns. Whatever the verbal silence window is protecting against, it is protecting against the quality of a human voice at a specific time of night, reaching something that should not hear it. I hold the silence every shift and the window passes, and at 2:30 I can speak again. And every time I do, the first word feels like stepping back into something I had briefly left. Rule 8. If you observe an animal on the plateau that does not move away from your approach, stop at 20 yards and wait. Most animals will move when a human approaches. If this one does not, change your route to maintain 20 yards of distance and continue your circuit. Do not attempt to identify the species if you cannot do so from 20 yards with your flashlight on the ground. Do not shine your light directly at the animal. Log the location and the duration of the encounter and continue. I have had 5 stationary animal encounters in 7 weeks. 3 were deer that eventually moved when I waited long enough. One was something I could not identify from 20 yards in the dark and logged as unknown, large mammal, stationary, cairn 4 vicinity, duration 11 minutes, moved north toward Rimrock. One was at cairn 7 on the southern edge and did not move for 23 minutes, and I routed around it on 2 consecutive passes of the southern section before it was gone on the 3rd pass. I logged that one as unknown, stationary, cairn 7 vicinity, duration exceeding 23 minutes, not present on subsequent pass. I noted that it had been facing south, toward the canyon. Rule 9. The monitoring station has a root cellar beneath the instrument room, accessed by a hatch in the instrument room floor. The hatch is locked with a combination lock. The combination is written on the underside of the desk in pencil. The cellar must not be opened during the hours of darkness. If you need to access the cellar for any reason, wait until full daylight. The cellar contains equipment storage and nothing else. If the cellar contains anything other than equipment storage when you open it during daylight, close it immediately and radio dispatch. I opened the cellar for the first time on my 4th day, midday, the sun fully up. Equipment storage, as described, metal shelving, sealed cases, the kind of containers used for sensitive instruments, everything labeled with inventory numbers, nothing unusual. On my 14th day, I opened it again for a routine inventory check and found that 2 of the sealed cases had been moved from the left shelving unit to the right one. Not opened. Just moved. I noted the relocation in the instrument log and reported it at the evening radio check. Dispatch said, "Copy. Thank you for noting it. No further comment." The cases have been rearranged on 3 subsequent inspections. Always sealed. Always accounted for in the inventory. Just in different positions than they were before. I note it and close the hatch and go about my shift and do not think about what is doing the rearranging in the dark hours when the hatch is locked and I am on the plateau walking my circuits. Rule 10. If you feel a strong compulsion to go to the canyon rim, outside of your normal patrol route to cairns 5, 6, and 7, sit down on the ground where you are. Place both palms flat on the plateau surface and recite the current code phrase aloud 10 times. Do not stand until you have completed all 10 repetitions. If the compulsion persists after 10, repeat the sequence. Log the location and the number of sequences required. The compulsion has hit me 6 times in 7 weeks, not a vague pull, a specific, directed urge to walk to the canyon rim, not to the patrol cairns, but to a point on the rim between cairns 6 and 7, where there are no cairns and no reason to go. Each time I sat down and put my palms on the rock and recited the phrase and counted. The longest sequence required 4 repetitions of 10 before the compulsion cleared. The sandstone under my palms during that session was warm, in a way the night air could not account for. Warm like something underneath it had been recently active. I noted it in the log and resumed my circuit. Rule 11. At the end of each shift, before leaving the patrol radius, rebuild any cairns that were disturbed during your circuits, even if you rebuilt them during the shift. Final state of all 12 cairns must be intact. Do not leave the radius until all 12 are standing. Check them in order 1 through 12 and confirm each one before checking the next. This confirmation walk does not count as a circuit. It is a closing procedure. The closing confirmation walk takes me about 30 minutes. It is the part of the shift that feels most like what I understood inspection work to be before I started this posting. A final check before you sign off. A confirmation that the structure is sound, except here the structure is 12 piles of flat sandstone, arranged in a half-mile circle on a dark plateau, and the thing you are confirming is not load-bearing capacity, but something I do not have an engineering term for. Rule 12. Do not look into the canyon from any point on the patrol route at any time during the hours of darkness, including through optical equipment, at reflective surfaces, or at any standing water that might provide a reflected view of the canyon interior. If you encounter standing water anywhere on the plateau, note the location. This is unusual and should be reported. I found standing water on the plateau on 2 occasions. The plateau is high desert. Standing water should not exist there in summer. Both times I noted the location and reported it, and both times dispatch said, "Copy, noted, continue your circuits." The water was gone by the following shift both times. I have not looked into it. The rule covers reflective surfaces, and standing water is a reflective surface. And the rule does not explain what I would see if I looked, and I follow the rule. I found the First Amendment in the sealed logbook in the supply shed, folded into the back pages behind the last handwritten entry. It was typed, more recent paper than the surrounding pages, placed there deliberately by someone who wanted it found after the logbook, but before too long. It said, "The 12 cairns mark the boundary of a negotiated perimeter. The negotiation is old. The terms are the circuits. 3 circuits per shift, every shift, rebuilding as needed, maintaining the boundary in its established form. The perimeter does not keep what is in the canyon from coming onto the plateau. It marks the agreement about where each remains. When cairns are disturbed, the agreement is being tested. When you rebuild them, you are reasserting the terms. The posting exists to maintain the reassertion on a nightly basis. Without consistent maintenance, the terms degrade. The consequences of degraded terms are documented in the Restricted Operations Archive under reference number 44-7. You do not need to read that document. You need to walk your circuits. I have not looked for reference number 44-7. I walk my circuits. The Second Amendment was in an envelope inside one of the sealed cases in the root cellar, slid under the lid. Found when I opened the case during a daylight inventory check to confirm the contents against the manifest. It said, "The code phrase recitation used during compulsion management is not arbitrary language. The specific phrases selected for this posting were chosen because their phonetic content, the particular combination of sounds, produces an effect on the plateau surface when spoken aloud at ground contact. The palm contact completes the circuit. When you recite the phrase with your palms on the rock, you are using the rock as a conductor. This is why the compulsion cannot persist through the full recitation. You are not calming yourself. You are using the landscape to hold the boundary while the compulsion passes. The landscape is a participant in this work. It has been one for longer than any human posting here. I read that amendment sitting on the cellar steps in the midday sun, and I sat with it for a long time. The landscape is a participant. 7 weeks of walking in circles on a high desert plateau in the dark, and the plateau has been working alongside me the whole time, and I did not know it, and the amendment says it does not matter whether I knew it, because the work happened regardless. I finish my posting in 3 weeks. I will walk every remaining circuit the same way I have walked every circuit before. 3 times a night, cairn 1 through cairn 12, rebuilding as needed, palms on the rock when the compulsion comes, verbal silence from 2 to 2:30, eyes off the canyon. On my last night, I will do the closing confirmation walk, and I will confirm all 12 cairns are standing, and I will walk back to the monitoring station, and I will write this out for whoever comes next, and I will put it where they will find it, before their first shift, but after they have read the rules, not before. The rules come first. The rules always come first. What comes after the rules is this. The rules are not for visitors. The rules are the terms. The terms are old. The cairns mark where one thing ends and another begins, And your job is to walk that line every night and rebuild it when it falls, and hold the silence when the silence is required, and put your hands on the ground and speak the words when something in you wants to walk to the rim and look down into the dark. Do not look into the canyon. Walk your circuits. The plateau is with you. That is more than most people get.